All right. So welcome to the kickoff of we did a minor tweak to the name of the plan at the last BOC meeting. We were calling it a landscape preservation plan. There were comments, and we discussed kind of after that meeting that landscape preservation, people might start thinking about, we're talking about landscaping my yard. We're talking about a bigger landscape. So we called it South Whitehall Landscapes, an open space, historic, agriculture, and natural resources plan. Because we want all of that to be highlighted, and we'll get into how we got to that point as well. So tonight we're going to start project management team. So myself, I'm Dave Manhart. I'm the Director of Community Development for South Whitehall. 20 plus years planning experience. AICP, which is the National Certification for Planners. One thing I was thinking about that I should have put in this bio that's really important to this landscapes plan in general is how important travel is. So I've traveled across the country, over in Europe, and that travel gives people experience and a different perspective on what makes good places and good landscapes and what's worth preserving. So I think that having that lens to look through as you're looking at things in South Whitehall or anywhere else that you can kind of bring to the table is that experience from travel. We also have Jeff Marshall.
My name is Jeff Marshall, and I am a retired president of Heritage Conservancy, which is a regional land trust and historic preservation organization. And I am a barn advocate and being former president of the National Barn Alliance and a founder of something called the Historic Barn Farm Foundation of Pennsylvania.
Evening, everyone. I'm Chris Stroller. I'm the long-range planner here at South Whitehall Township, and I'm coming up on 1 year of experience here at South Whitehall. But prior to that, I spent the greater part of a decade working for a nonprofit land trust in the area, Wildlands Conservancy, doing a lot of the work that we're talking about tonight, open space planning, this type of planning, and direct land preservation. Kind of looking at the regional level, I've really worked with a lot of regional partners and entities. So when we talk landscapes, there's a lot of people that get involved in these sort of things. So it's kind of right in my wheelhouse. It was very involved in one of our regional landscapes. I think Jeff will briefly mention in his presentation. Here in the Lehigh Valley, we're part of the Lehigh Valley Greenways Conservation Landscape Initiative. And there's a lot of attention on just this area in general. So we're hoping to see how South Whitehall can kind of look at our own landscapes and also think regionally as well.
So tonight, again, it's the kickoff meeting. So we're really kind of introducing the topics. And the questions we're looking to answer tonight are why and where. So why preserve a landscape? Why is it important? And then also looking at the wheres. So we have a mapping exercise and some online digital exercises that we will walk through to try and get into more of that where. The next set of meetings, we're breaking it into agricultural resources, historic, and natural resources. So we'll have specific meetings on that. We're currently lining up subject matter experts. I think we have one here on historic, so we have that expert. I will add, we're thrilled to have Jeff on board here and looking forward to working with Jeff and his years of experience. So those meetings we're calling the what and the who. So who's important to preservation, what partners are available, and getting into more of the what specifically do we want to preserve. After we have those meetings, we will have a wrap-up meeting where we're really looking at the how and the when. So what preservation mechanisms are there, which ones make sense for South Whitehall, and when can we implement. So that's really where we get into the toolbox and the implementation part of it. And we have it tentatively scheduled for October. The what and the who's will be in August. And again, all the meetings will be hybrid. So everybody online, welcome. I didn't welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out on a rainy night. Next. So why are we here? How did we get here? We just finished the comprehensive plan, and there was a lot of analysis that we did and compiling data during that process. And during the resource protection piece of that, we were looking at agriculture, historic, and natural resources in that chapter. And what we ended up doing is we overlaid all of those resources. And we started to see that there's a lot of overlap between ag and natural and historic. And it kind of started us thinking about looking at things more holistically and looking at things on a landscape perspective so that we can, because one of the things that I'm sure Jeff will get into it is a barn without the context is kind of just a barn. So having that context built around it, we felt was an important way to proceed with this. The other piece of this is the plan in general hopes to be the guiding document for future preservation. So should there become an open space tax, if we go that way, this would be the guiding document that helps the board make decisions on how to preserve and what to preserve. So that's really the end goal with this is the guiding document for preservation for the township.
So I just want to briefly mention the online survey that we have that's live right now. And we have mentioned this before a few times. I'm going to do just a quick demonstration of this. We've had a couple of people fill out the survey, but for those of you that haven't, I expect everyone here in this room to definitely fill out the survey at some point. We're going to leave this open throughout the summer. The easiest way to get there is from the township website down here at South Whitehall Landscapes. You can just go click here for photo survey. And the idea here is that we're hoping to get not just information about why you're interested in this, what you love about the township, but we want to see it. We really want to see some of the areas when we talk about landscapes. Oftentimes we're thinking very visual. We're thinking view sheds, we're thinking vistas, things like that. So please share with us, show us what you love in this township. So you can just fill out some of the questions here, and then down at the bottom, you can actually, if you are using your phone, if you have a smartphone that you're accessing this survey, you can take a picture directly with your phone and you can upload it there. Or you can take a digital photo that you have and just drop it into here. And then if you are taking a picture with your phone, if you have your location services on, you can actually pinpoint to where the location is. This helps us so that we can start to see where all of these different photos are taken, and then we can kind of put that onto a map and we can start to look at where our landscapes are. Or if you are just dropping the picture in, you can use this map here to actually enter the location. First, you need to enter the photo, and then you can either type in the address or use the map itself to, there we go. And then you can enter the location there. So this is really great for us to hopefully get a lot of pictures of what people love in the township and finding out where all these places are. We've also added in that you can add as many pictures as you like. It's been great so far. We've had good feedback from folks entering it. And some people have just shared, personal photos, photos of their garden, photos of their own landscape, a micro landscape around their house. So we're hoping to see, just it helps paint a picture of why you're here, and as Dave mentioned, what's important to the residents in this township when we talk about preserving. We can talk about preservation on many different scales. So that is on there, and if anyone has any questions at the end, I can help you walk through this survey. So then, without further ado, Jeff is here to talk about what is a landscape, why landscapes, and just all the great things about what we're trying to do.
So you're going to go through these as we, let me, thank you, first of all. And as you've heard, I have retired from Heritage Conservancy. I was on staff there for 40 years doing land conservation and historic preservation and the other stuff. And we used to preserve properties, both land or historic, as the opportunity arose. Somebody was interested, we had a grant, we did something. And at the end of a lot of effort, we ended up what we used to call preservation measles, which are spots of preserved things all over a community and really no linkage, no connection. And so out of that idea came a concept that we called lasting landscapes. And basically, we went through the exercise that, what South Whitehall is going through now, which is to find the historic resources that are out there and mark them somehow on a map, and then really connect them, draw an amorphous glob around them that connects them, links them into a landscape. And that was idea was not just that there's a lot of there, but it's in a contiguous amount. And when you're going to focus your energy, you focus it where on the greatest collection of the resources you want to protect are located. We call them character defining elements, is a term. There's, other people have other names for them. And some of them is like signature items, signature elements. And the idea behind that term signature element, which is slightly different than character defining element, is what would you tell people about your community? What is your signature? If you think of like the Declaration of Independence, what does everybody think about? John Hancock. He just stands out in front of everybody. He's out in front. 50 other delegates, that's the person you think of. So when you think of part of the evening and part of this whole program will be, when you think of South Whitehall, what's that signature element that you think of? So that's what we want to do. And we call them character defining elements, and we don't care whether they're the land, historic, natural, scenic, because one person's idea of scenic is not the same as the other. I do land conservation, Chris did, and I got an argument with an attorney because someone wanted to cut down some trees. And he said, well, the trees are scenic. I said, well, the fields that are behind the trees are scenic. So it's the tree is both scenic and non-scenic. Scenic is in the eyes of the beholder. So instead of trying to parse these things, we try to glob them all together. And that's really what, go on the next one, that's really what a lasting landscape is. And so the idea is that as people go through the community, they don't take the time to figure out whether it's why they like it. They just feel something towards it. We hope we feel something towards it. And so that we need to record, celebrate, and then preserve what the community thinks is important. And the way that is done is not by people on this side of the table. It's from people on that side of the table thinking these things are important and this is what they'll do to help. And this idea was a good idea. And 20 years ago, Secretary DeBaradinas came to Lehigh Valley when we had a program, and he thought it was such a wonderful idea that he says stole it, but he adopted it on a statewide basis. And now the state of Pennsylvania has massive landscapes, and they're almost too big to work on. But the criteria that went into our original lasting landscapes, and which the secretary brought to DCNR are listed here. And I hate to read these, but if you just look at the highlights, presence of DCNR lands is fine for DCNR. But for a community like this, it's where's there already a park? Where's there already a township facility? Where's there already preserved land? Think of it as a mall. What are your anchor stores? Then you put the little shops in and around your anchor stores. That sense of place. Do you get a feeling of something special and different about this place than some other place? That's critically important. Readiness is the one that's really hard to gauge. Um, are there threats? Are there opportunities? Do people think that it's, there's no problems yet because there's a lot of open space, or do people say we've lost it all already, there's nothing worth saving? You have to have that stage in between those two to have the community engaged, and that's the next one. Are there people willing to help? Get the preservation advocates, the historians, the people the recreationalists, the bicyclists, the hunters, all the people who really appreciate the community for more than its locational proximity to Allentown, to get together, and then try to garner some strategic investments. And heard earlier that somewhere down the road there may be some local initiatives, but there are state initiatives that help. And the term greenway has become the term of art to say when you have these globs of important natural, historic, scenic resources together, and they attract a lot of interest from the funders, and they also attract a lot of interest from what we call cultural tourism. Why people come to a community, why people invest in a community. I was involved in the state heritage tourism task force, and it took me about 30 seconds to realize what's good for a tourist is also good for the people who live in the community. If there are neat things to do, beautiful places to go, good restaurants to eat at, you don't have to be a tourist. You're a local, and really should celebrate them and protect those things. So that's an epiphany I had a long time ago, and that's what really has started. Sounds presumptuous. That's one of the many people in the many places who said we have to do this a different way. Go ahead. And so we want to do this at the landscape level, as you heard. I love old barns, but I want to save a barn in the field and the fields around the barn. That's what makes it a special situation. I just passed a beautiful barn on the way in here. It's sitting on the corner in front of nothing. You don't get the feeling of a barn. You get the feeling of beauty, but that's only a half or a third of really what feelings something like that could evoke. And so that's the landscape is the land and the buildings. And as I mentioned earlier, the Greenway concept has been adopted. It's been adopted in this area. This is part of a larger Jordan Creek Greenway where this concept is not original. It just hasn't really drilled down to a local level. The landscapes we're talking about don't have to be miles long or hundreds of acres or thousands of acres like in the state. They can be a couple hundred acres. They can be an oasis that you want to work on to see that's preserved. So one of the things that I'm very involved with is historic resources, and there is a level on or right down on historic resources. And driving through in 2 hours, I saw about 30 or 40 more buildings that I thought were historically significant than were identified earlier. That's because people have not gone through the analysis of what makes a building important. It's because it's a wonderful piece of architecture. It's got some history, a story attached to it. It's a style of architecture that's no longer prevalent. It's the site of something important happened, some event, some discovery, some change in the community's history. And so there are a lot of them. And I think part of this process will come to in a couple of weeks is how do we flesh that out? And that's where we will reach out to the community. I think we will ask people to take a picture of what they consider a historic or historical property and send it to us. And we will play National Register eligibility game, whether they play at the state of Pennsylvania, explain how these things are evaluated. And sometimes it just comes down to what's important to you. Where is there a special place that's important to you? You're now being the opportunity to say, I think this place is important. There was a whole program by the National Trust years ago where you used to get citizens out with a little banner that says, this place matters. They would sit in front of anything and they would post these things up to the national website. And there are thousands of it where people just sit down and say, this place matters. It doesn't have to be National Register eligible. It doesn't have to be Class A farmland. It doesn't have to be anything. It has to be what people think is special. Go ahead. And so that's what we were going to ask. And these are some of the questions. I do a lot of open space planning, is what I ask people. If your Aunt Millie was to come in from Dubuque, what would you take her to see? Where would you say, you got to see this while you're here? What says home to you? When you see a picture of it, if you happen to be, someplace traveling and there's a picture pops up, what says home? And critically is what building or spot where it to be developed would change the character of your community. And that's a very important question as we get down the road, because I'll bet you 95% of the things that will be pointed out have no permanent protection. They are only there because of the grace of property owners through the years, and property owners we hope in the future will continue, but that's not always the case. And that's what's important. And finally, a real simple question, I think I don't even have it in there, is what do you like? Just put that up there. What do you like? And then these smart guys will try to figure out the best way to try to protect it. So that's what we do. We have learned, again, having done this a long time, you can't presume that people understand this or consider it all, that we really have to pull things together. We do get drawn to where the funding comes from. And is it, state ag money? Is it this? But for example, the state ag program does not protect historic structures. State ag program doesn't protect scenic views. Under the state ag program, you could fill up your whole property with greenhouses as long as you're preserving the economic viability for farming. So we can't presume people know that when they're voting for this, it really only means that it's up to what the community wants. And as I said, as I started, these really approaches have been reactive or fragmented. And so now this community has really understood that and is really trying to do this proactive, coordinated, and most importantly, community supported enterprise, because it won't work without engagement. And like I say, this is my old slide I used to use when I used to do the work. Which road do I go down? And it's really was a mistake. So next one. This is how we do it now. We try to find a sweet spot. Instead of being going different directions, try to bring them all together and not go down their own path. And so that means there's more partners, but it means accommodating more goals and really be inclusive. And you can't be, it's my clubhouse kind of thing. It's my thing, and I want it just to be for my group. You have to really help embrace other people to help them help you. And then, there are some historic things that we'll come back to that I think everybody points to. Nobody knows why. Why does everybody like covered bridges? They do. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful, apocryphal stories about kissing under the bridges and all the other fun stuff, but everyone loves covered bridges. And there are very few of them left in Lehigh County. I think Bucks County might have the lead with like 13, but they're not building them anymore, and they get destroyed on a really, unfortunately, a regular basis. And again, sometimes you don't appreciate something until it's gone. Right? So that's what this group is trying to do, is rethink the whole process and look at things that are special and unique, but also what are typical and what describe and really are the signature resources and elements of the community. So that's, I think, all. Yep, that's it. There's the last little bit of thing that we had a conversation we were planning about farmland preservation. I learned that an ear of corn doesn't care where it grows as long as the soil is right. But the people driving down the road would rather see a field of corn growing where they can see it than over behind a hill where they don't know it's there. It shows you how you can really just get a special feeling from seeing something like that. And it could be a meadow, it could be a field, it could be trees, or it could be pasture. It's just something that's more than this is a locational amenity. You're X miles from here and Y miles from somewhere else. It's why this place is special, can be special, but has to have work to make it remain special.
Just have a couple other kind of like quotes and things.
These are
like
things that we threw in there. And these are just, like I say, we don't want to parse them. We have all those things that are out here. You just go through the last one quickly. Buildings are important, and we have the map up there. One way to do surveys is go out and see if they're still there. That's the easiest thing to do. And that is right now the most representative thing of our history, our buildings, because they're easier to maintain than memories. So that's why they're important. And I think.
Yeah, I love that quote there. Buildings may be the main characters.
And that's where we are. And that's the last thing is sometimes when I did an open space plan for a township, sent a survey, what do you think is important, what, and all this stuff. And someone said it was the farmer's market, because that's where she can sit out, be with her friends and look out over nothing. And who am I to say it's got to be something significant? You ask the community and then you respond to the answers. That's what this group's going to do. And there are some economic benefits to it for, attracting people, sustaining people, having people want to stay here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before we jump in, we have a little exercise, but before we jump in, I figured we'd open it up to questions if there's anything that popped into anyone's heads. Because we are running a hybrid meeting, if you are going to speak, we'll get a microphone over to that table if someone jumps in. So are there any questions right now? Or should we just go ahead and jump in? Okay. So during the comprehensive planning process, we had the exercise, we called it the Where Should We Grow exercise, where we asked participants to put dots on a map that represented population or jobs. And then we also gave them 2 specific dots for preservation and for, I think it was fixing or improve. It was improve. So we have this map that has all of the green dots on the map were places that people wanted to protect. So we used that and kind of in the comprehensive planning process, we used that information to kind of help craft the land use plan. So the maps that are in front of you and the maps in the workbooks have the land use plan. So those are the land uses that came out of the comprehensive plan. And there's specific goals and strategies that are tied to those land uses that will eventually get rolled into zoning and this preservation effort as well. What we wanted to do is get a little bit more information on, what's behind these, why people put these dots on the map. What's really important about these locations on the map. And that will help us kind of with the where. So we have an exercise, and I think that we divided the township into larger grids than the individual hexes because we do kind of want to look on a larger scale. And the end result is what we'll do is we'll take these answers that we gather from this meeting and we kind of will put them together and look for common themes that, as Jeff said, create those blobs. We may have a blob of historic or a blob of, sure, we'll have a blob of Jordan Creek. But that's kind of what we're looking to get out of this meeting tonight. So we have the exercise, I guess it's on the next slide.
Yeah, so what we're going to do, I know it's a dreary, rainy night, but we're hoping to get people energized. We're hoping to have a little bit more interaction here. Anyone in the back, we hope that maybe you can kind of fill in here and get around the tables. We want to have, lots of conversation. What we're going to do is have some live polling, and in your workbooks, you can follow along. All of the 10 areas are in there, and we're going to just either call out, or what we can do is actually you can, on your phone, you can text in your answers for this. What we're asking people is, when you see this little area, what do you think of? What do you love about it? What do you want to protect? What is important to you? And I want to encourage people to think about some of the concepts that Jeff shared. It's not just the significant things, it's the simple things. I think, there's certainly going to be areas in the township where it might not be the beautiful stream bed, or it might not be, a beautiful vista, but there's still some character there. There's still some areas that we want to hear from you. What do you like about this area? This is our chance to, as Dave said, dig in deeper onto why those dots were placed into these hexagons and give us an idea of when we're creating sort of these micro landscapes, what are we trying to preserve, whether it's the character of the place, whether it's a specific feature. So if you have your phone, if you want to participate live, or what we can do is I can type in these answers here if we say them into the microphone, and you can kind of maybe, we'll take a couple minutes on each one and you can talk amongst the tables and maybe get some ideas here. But if you text the number 22333, if you text Chris Stroller 361 to that number, it'll get you into this live polling. And then after that, every text that you send, you can submit a one-word answer, a two-word answer. Here, I'll give you an example. So let's just say green space. So I've submitted green space here, and you can see it pops up. So the more words that we hear, if we hear a number of repeated phrases, it'll start to pop up in this word cloud here. And then that way we can all sort of see where everyone's head is going, and hopefully it'll spark some other ideas. So let's take a couple of minutes on this first one. This is, if you're following along in your workbook, this is focus area A1, and they're also marked on the maps in front of you. And if you really want, if you're, there's a specific feature in this area, but you're not quite sure where it is, we do have some blow-ups of the larger maps here that we can pass around.
And Chris, does it take multiple words, or does it have to be separated by a hyphen or a period?
Separated by a space. So you can submit multiple words, but okay. If you wanted to say like Jordan Creek, and then someone just said Creek, then Creek would show up twice. Creek would get larger, if okay. That makes sense. So,
yep.
Sarah, it looks like you have a question there. Oh, yeah. So does anyone need help getting the, yeah, Sarah, please ask a question, because people are online too. So maybe someone has the same question.
It's not a good question.
Okay, that's all right. Is anyone participating on their phone? I see a number of you with your phones out. Did you get in okay? And it says that you're into this survey? Okay. Jacob, just to test, would you mind maybe sending something, anything that comes to mind, just so we can see? There we go. Okay, they're starting to pop up now. Yeah, so every text would be a word. Yep. Farmhouse. This is great. And so remember that we'll be going through this for all the different areas. So if there's something that you think, that you're thinking of important in the township that you might not be seeing on the map here, if anyone has any questions to orient themselves, we as kind of planners, geographers, we often take for granted everyone's ability to kind of understand where they are. If anyone needs any help orienting themselves, I think Dave's happy to come around and point some things out. So you can see the Jordan Creek on there. Covered Bridge Park is in this area. Parkland High School. So we have a lot of responses here. We have, it's not showing up on mine, but we have over, I think, 20 responses here. So we're going to move on to the next area. Now, the nice thing is, and I'm sure this is a very popular area, but I think it's all, some of this is also covered in another section. So we're going to move on to the next one. And now this is area A2. And you can just text the same number and it should populate here on A2. Yeah. And if there is anyone following online, you should see area A2 at the top of your screen. It should have closed the previous survey and opened the next one.
If you do want to have the words tied together, I see somebody use the hyphen. That'll keep it together.
We're going to move on to the next area. So this is going to be area B2 or B1. I have a question for the group Apple.Hill. Is that a specific area?
I learned that it is a ski
A ski area. So it's oh, so it's that steeper part, maybe. Okay.
I think Apple Hill's in North Whitehall, though.
Oh, okay. Moving on to the next one. This is area B2. Moving on to the next one. So next is area B3. And now everybody has workbooks. You can also, if you have any other ideas, you can jot them down in your workbook. And then before the next meeting, we'll collect the workbooks and then we can incorporate any other thoughts into there. And if you want to take notes, if you want to point out anything on the maps in the workbooks, please, any notes that you want, these are for you to take notes now, take home with you. If you forgot about something you wanted to mention, a question for the group, is treatle misspelling? Okay. What was it supposed to be? Trestle, okay.
German.
Moving on to the next one. Yes. Yes. Would you mind speaking into the microphone so that we can all hear it online?
I think I'm the oldest one in the room. And I remember when Cedar Crest Boulevard was the end of Allentown. I mean, anything out past that was country, except the golf course was there, right? And um, at that corner of Cedar Crest and Tillman, there was a Pennsylvania Dutch store where you could buy Pennsylvania Dutch things. I don't know if you
Distal
remember.
thing.
The Distal Think was the name of it. And that's not there anymore. And the other thing that's not there anymore is that restaurant that was just out past there that everybody
The
talks.
Village Inn.
The Village Inn. Where's the Village Inn? You know, that was a place to go when you had a dinner or a party or a birthday. That was really the place to celebrate.
Was that at the same like intersection area, the Village Inn?
Like Parkway Road.
Parkway,
Tillman.
Parkway Road in Tillman.
Parkway Road in Tillman was Village Inn. So I'm gonna make some notes here. Am I looking at C2? Okay.
It was past Cedar Crest. Oh, no, Tillman. It was all in Tillman.
Would you mind writing down and spelling the name of that store underneath the area
Okay.
that corresponds? That would really help us in collecting some of the notes then.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
I want to say something else. I'm thinking about the places where we used to eat. One was Waltz, that's not there anymore. That was also Pennsylvania Dutch. And there's another one. But those are the things I miss, the Pennsylvania Dutch part of this place. There was also where the Sunoco station is on Cedar Crest and Tillman. There was, maybe I'm wrong about that, but there was a farmer's market. There was a farmer who brought a lot of his produce there. That was there a long time too, that you could, I think it's a bank now. But that was also special. There was also the trolley that went to Greenewalds.
Mm-hmm.
There are no more trolleys either. And so that's sad too, I think. I know in Philadelphia, they saved a lot of the trolleys and they're going to bring them back. But here, there are no more trolleys and there are no more tracks. I think in Philadelphia, there are tracks.
So that's one of the ideas that we've been kind of tooling around with is when we talk about preserving something like the trolley, what is the best way to preserve that? Is it identifying the area where the track went and showing that area and preserving that location and the bed of where the track ran through for a section? You can preserve that as is. You could recreate that into the trail. You could recreate that into, some sort of transportation network. Or is it the story of the trolley? Is it the story of how ridership with that trolley over the turn of the century has led to a place like Greenewalds growing to where it is and has contributed to what we have in South Whitehall now because you had the ability to kind of move outward from Allentown utilizing that transportation network? And is it identifying that story so that people understand the growth of this community? So it's always a question that's kind of what we're trying to get to the heart of here. What's the most important thing and what should we look at in trying to preserve these ideas? Is there physical traits? Are there, we have a great history book, but we have, one book. And is there a need for other resources like that? Is there a need to have, other publications and things that, these stories can be assembled in one area and shared, and then generations from now, someone can pick up that book and read that and understand that when we're all gone. These are really great ideas, and I encourage everyone to kind of think about that. That's what's helpful for us. Kind of as Jeff mentioned, we can go a lot of different ways with this. Right now at this stage, this kind of first phase is we're looking for direction. We're looking for direction on the common themes, the common ideas, and we're hoping that in August we can kind of nail down what are some of those resources, and we can develop specific mechanisms to preserve those, whether that is through storytelling, physical preservation, or ideas of preserving kind of a visible story. We can kind of look at an area like a trolley line, whether it's a recreated trolley as a trailhead for a trail, and then there's some interpretive signage there or something like that.
It comes down, what physical, if any, what physical manifestations do you need to keep a story alive? And you might not need them. Book may be enough, but I think more people like it more visual and tangible. And having that physical manifestation, which I said earlier, historic buildings are the best physical manifestations we have of our stories, but you don't always have that benefit. And so we have to think of ways, to work around that.
I'm not sure, but I remember that Cedar Crest and Tillman was like a focal place, that there was a ice cream store on the corner where the gas station is, that people always went there for ice cream at night, their cars. I wish we had a town center, place where the kids could accumulate or, hang out. And when I was in high school, the football games, afterwards, we went to the on Walbert, it's still there, the paddock. After football games, Allentown High School, we went to the paddock or the brass rail in Allentown, but that was a very busy place. But
So I've added focal point, maybe community center, not to be confused with a physical building, but the idea of the center of the community,
right,
Where people feel comfortable to go.
like that.
yeah.
That's why you bring me in here.
Thanks.
Sorry, I should know better. Your comment on whether the trolley, recreate it. Lower Macungie, their new subdivision with where Whole Foods is and the walking paths that go through there. They've done a very good job of
The interpretive signage.
interpretive signage that really give you a glimpse into what that area used to be. And I think if we were able to incorporate that into some of the landmarks and places and people that we're talking about, I think that would be much more helpful for our community as opposed to a book if they're incorporated into trails or even in neighborhoods where people are just out walking.
I love that. And I love the way that they have utilized that there, because oftentimes it's not at one site. It's the whole site altogether. And I was just there with my son yesterday, and he asked me about the sign because he saw the picture. And it's, it sparks all kinds of conversation of what was here, what is here, what could be here. But I really like that. I like that for, some of the places where things are already lost. I know Jeff has been digging into this book over here and he's pointing out a lot of really cool things. And we're very lucky to have a lot of things still left in this township, but there are some things that aren't here. But it doesn't mean that those stories have to go away. And even if there is a shopping mall or, even a residential area that, there might have been a great story there, having some interpretive signage goes a lot further to distinguish South Whitehall from somewhere else, because it's the story of what was there for the people that are here now.
I think with interpretive signage too, we talk about ways to connect. I mean, I think with the Greenway, if you look at the 10-year build out of the Greenway, interpretive signage along the Greenway would tie in a lot of these areas. There's, the Troxel House and Barn are right on the Jordan, right? You have the geochemicals or former Trojan powder companies right on the Jordan by the Greenway. You have the natural, the agricultural, the industrial, the Iron Bridge. They're all on the Greenway.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's a way to connect them, and then you have signage, or it's a way you can almost tell the entire story of South Whitehall 250 years, or whatever, just on that path, which is kind of cool.
It's funny, Jeff, he was sitting here and do you want to kind of talk about your epiphany as we were discussing on this exercise and kind of what it could lead to, almost the idea of like how all these things are connected, a tour or of sorts. And
Well, while you guys were doing this stuff, it occurred to me that there are a lot of nice places that are being pointed out individually. And then so I asked the question is, what would be the nicest scenic route to get from one to the other? If you were to try to get from one place you'd like to another, how would you go? I know, having only been here for a little bit, the routes I don't want to go. I would really like to know the routes that should go. And I think before the end of this exercise, and people at home in particular who are sending in their surveys, as a stranger to town, tell me what's the nicest view in the township. Take a picture of the nicest view so I can go see it. And I think what people in this room and the people who are participating at home will tell us what is the nicest view. And if you're telling me that's the best, let's make sure that we can do something about that one. So that's a couple of things that we're sitting here talking about, is taking these exercises and figure out how we could do something that doesn't involve millions of dollars and things, but involves engaging more people into, as you said, participating and understanding and appreciating what's here, or what was here. And as we said, and what will be here. I mean, all three are related.
And Jacob, bonus points to you for kind of hitting the nail on the head of the importance of the landscape. When we talk about all these resources together and kind of telling the story, so that to me emphasizes the importance of the Jordan Creek Greenway as a landscape. And I think it was kind of the start of this exercise, and seeing just everything in that valley, in that riparian area, just the overlapping number of resources that just from a high level view are important. And now understanding we can't preserve that landscape entirely how it was 100 years ago, there's a lot that we can do, and there's areas that we can put emphasis on of physical traits that we need to preserve and stories we need to preserve, and understanding the thread of that story going through one particular geography.
Well, even if you look at the Greenway, right? The township will only have essentially the land that the Greenway is on. But if you have a field and a barn you can see from the Greenway, township doesn't necessarily have to acquire it, but if the landowner chooses to preserve it in a formal or informal way, you still can see the barn, you can see the field, and the township doesn't have to go out and worry about how are we going to acquire this. Nobody can get to it, nobody can see it. You have the Greenway, which is a resource. It's a launch pad for all of these other things we want to talk about and do. So
yeah, I know one of the things we've talked about is the importance of identifying character, and that character is important when we look at other aspects of what the municipal responsibilities are, municipal planning, and that comes into transportation, comes into zoning, comes into our subdivision land development ordinance, and how we have the root of the character of an area help us understand where those more regulatory pieces come into play, and how we can kind of look at different geographies might be useful in certain areas to understand, it's not one size that fits all in the township. And that's kind of where we're hoping to go with this.
I just wanted to make a comment. There's different ways to do signage as well. You can do old pictures compared to what is present right now, or you could do like a superimposing the pictures. So if you're standing in a place, you can locate that right on the picture and see what was there where you are. Because sometimes it's difficult to find that placement when comparing maps.
Do a different decades overlay to this that would be on a website. So you have this currently, then you overlay it with something that was like 20 years ago. And you put in places that used to be there, and then can link it. When you click on it, you link it to this, the pictures, if anybody has old pictures. And, I know I do. My mom worked at the Distal Fink. So it's, that would be something to preserve the history. People actually see it right at the place where it was signage, but also digital signage.
And that's the important part of, where we're going over the summer here is, we need the community to participate in this. And Jeff, emphasized that point the whole time. This isn't our plan on this side of the table. It's your plan. And it's, everything that you guys have, whether it's the ideas, the stories, or in some cases, the pictures, the maps, the history. We're here to help be a guide, but also help to be a liaison to try to see how we can, take some of the information that's out there and put it to good use, and some of the resources that are out there and put them to good use. So I encourage, you to share any of that with us, and that kind of helps us understand what we have. We'll be going over a pretty in-depth inventory over the summer of, what's in this book, all the resources, and anything else that we don't know about. So we need people to share that with us.
And the thing about historic things and stories is that most people don't realize other people care. You mentioned you used to work at the Distal Fink. Well, it's a picture of you in the restaurant that you say, what am I going to do with this? Well, upload it. Someone, and someone said earlier, this book stopped 50 years ago. Who's been collecting that kind of stuff since that time? And, this is an opportunity, to put it someplace where someone wants to go back and tell the stories. We'll have some of the material to do so. I mean, it's not related to what we're here for, but it's while we're here and while we're thinking of these things that would have said, would have, could have, should have years ago. It's like labeling the pictures of your grandmother on the back of all the photos you have, because you're not going to be here in a while and your kids won't know who they were. And
Thank you for your comment about your mom working at the store. It's a wonderful opportunity for all of us, and it spurred me to think that I want to go talk to my neighbors across the street who have lived there for 45 years when our road was a dirt road. It's opportunity to speak to our elders, our parents, who can help connect us back to the prior generation, and we can have them participate with us in this to make their memories relevant and help us build off of what they knew of South Whitehall, what we know of it now, and how do we help present that to the next generation.
That's a tremendous idea. One of the things that we were going to mention at the end here is some of the next steps in our sort of resource inventory is interviewing and talking to key stakeholders, some of the people that we already know. And there's so many people out there, we can't talk to everybody, but if there's anything that we can do as a township to kind of maybe frame some questions, and if you can talk to your neighbors, and if they can't come out to a meeting like this or participate online or anything, we would love if we can provide some guidelines, and if you can interview them and send it back, and we can capture those stories and their information in this plan. That's a terrific idea. Thank you.
And one other comment, as we're talking about old structures, I'm thinking about old houses, not necessarily barns or the oldest Troxel house, but houses that were built, early 1900s, many communities have programs where they put a plaque on the house that is, says when the house was built. I wonder if that's something we can build into this, because within our villages and neighborhoods, we've got a lot of very old, beautiful homes that have been preserved over the years who might not make it onto this list, but I think it might be important to somehow build that in as well.
I know we kind of received a comment on the online survey about that, and even there's a lot of things too that it may not be your property, your responsibility, and it may be something in your neighborhood, and it's not always easiest to go up to a neighbor and say, hey, I love your house, but sharing something with us or pointing it out, or maybe this is an opportunity to kind of even say, hey, did you know that this is going on? You have a beautiful home. Would you ever consider doing anything with it or sharing more? And there's this plan going on. So that's why we group the tables together. We want neighbors to talk to neighbors. We want kind of, this to be a collaborative effort. It's not, just one person saying what they want. It's the collective here kind of identifying, what's special about our community.
I would add too, I know we have this survey online for the submit your favorite landscape photo. Would it be possible to maybe have a secondary one that's just a place for people to upload photos, type in any historic resources they have? I know some residents, because I think my grandparents have old maps of the township that they received from the township 50, 60 years ago. Old photos, type in stories, or even a physical location. You put a Dropbox in the township building when they come to pay their water bill. Make photocopies of what you have and put it in there. Just amass as much as you can. You know what I mean? And have a secondary survey that focuses purely on information, because people might say, well, my favorite landscape, yeah, I like that mountain, but am I going to go out and take a picture of it? Or, oh, I have these old pictures. Let me scan them or copy them and submit them or put them in the box or whatever. It's kind of an easy thing people could do. And then advertise it too in your water bill. When we send out our bills, we send out our newsletter. But hey, if you have anything, there's a place to drop it off. You might get a lot more interest that way too.
Yeah,
especially from older residents.
I love it. I mean, if people are interested in sharing, we are ready and willing to listen. I know kind of as a map nerd, I'll look at any old map and we can scan some of them depending on the quality. But it's one of the things we've kind of thrown around is like, we don't really have a good repository of, historic information. We talk about partnerships. We talk about, we're right here in this building. We have the library right next door and kind of looking at that. And we might not get to the end all over the summer of, what that is, but I think developing a roadmap of how do we get to understanding what the resources are in our township and how do we collect that, how do we catalog that, how do we share that is at least the first goal I think we're trying to get to.
And so one of the reasons we wanted to start collecting photos is not only, things that are important that you see and you take a current picture of. It's trying to amass this collection of historic photos. And one of the easiest ways to get historic photos is to take a picture of a old picture. And then you have that can be submitted digitally. So if anybody's out talking to somebody or you have the picture of your mom at Distelfink, take a picture of the picture, send it in, and we'll start cataloging them and have them. And one of the comments you made about having the pictures and a map, and there's things that we can do, and this may be a deliverable that comes out of this, is a story map with geotagged pictures and stories. And, everything we collect through this process is all in a story map that you can access on your phone as you're driving around town or walking around. Catalog and access that information that way.
I think we had some comments back here, and then I know Marie's online. I know Marie wanted to make a comment, so we're going to go to this table, and then when we're finished up, Marie, you can, I think Rob will let you know when we're ready. Thanks.
Well, I'm thinking of different things. This Crackersport here on C1. My neighbor, when you ask her where she's from Crackersport. Like that was the town.
She was born there.
She was born there, and she talks about, where Vivo is, and the people that live there are the ones that have that car dealership on 19th Street, that big, big car dealership. Lived there in that Crackersport. She's so proud of that area. The other thing is that area on 309 where, every year another house gets taken down. I think there's only one house left that has all that junk outside in the corner. I don't know what that street is that goes in. Kernsville. It must have been a Kernsville. And all those houses are gone. And, the other thing is the Parkland restaurant. That used to be very popular. It had a miniature golf club, people went there and played golf and ate. And that was always a busy place.
Are you talking the Parkland Diner off of Tillman or up off 309?
on Wahlberg.
The one on Wahlberg. Okay. Oh, yeah, the one on Wahlberg. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. The names on these maps, this is populated by just a generic base map. These are done on a national level. Just the names here that you see, Greenwald, Crackersport. But I'm always so curious, I get frustrated sometimes looking at these these base map names, but I also am so curious sometimes. So some of these places that show up that I've never heard of before, Metamora Station, Sipal, I've heard of, and kind of to your point, like
By the high school, it's like Meyerville.
Myersville, and I don't know a lot of people that know the significance of these names and why these areas are called out, and that's something that we'd love to catalog or identify is these interesting little crossroads, and whether there's something there or not, it's at least good for us to know, it was clearly significant enough to have a name pointed out. So Norma J's, yeah, still there, still very popular. Sarah, did you have something to question?
Just quick. So, so piggyback off of what he was saying, we live in an old home, 1700s, and it's not part of a national registry or anything like that, but I think it would be really interesting to catalog, or maybe we have some detail of this, to pinpoint these old homes. I mean, it was an old farmstead that we have. We have the old spring house and the old smokehouse next to the old farmhouse, and we have a full detailed history of it. I find it really interesting, and so I'm sure there's others around that, and to be able, if we could put those on the map somehow, and I don't know that I'd want people knocking on my door, but, it would be neat to drive around and see them, and point of interest, yeah.
Also, too, really interested. Maybe it's a way to keep them from knocking on your door, asking for a tour.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
There's information out there, and you can the road and take someone pulls over the side of the road to take a picture of a barn, and I'm sure Jeff is one of those people all the time to go and look at some property, and if there's some information available for it, that'd be great. I know, yeah. Yes, Marie, can you unmute yourself and make your comment?
Sure, yeah, I tuned in late, so I'm not sure who all the people are that are leading the program. I recognize Dave's voice and I recognize a few others. And there was a gentleman there who made a comment about an area where you drive, where you use a specific like roadway or take a specific route. And that he made that comment not too long ago. And it made me think about a route that I took coming home through South Whitehall after being down 45 minutes to 50 minutes south of South Whitehall. caring and dealing with my parents as they aged. And there was many trips that I took down there. But coming home, I needed to find a way to decompress. And I wonder how many other individuals do that. And so my route for decompression and helping me to identify my place was continuing from 309 on Ridgeview Road up over the hill. You get a view as you look ahead, go down to Huckleberry Road, make the right, then make the left. And I'm not quite sure what that road is, but I think you turn right on Iron Bridge and it takes you to the covered bridge where I would turn left. And I didn't realize it right away, but as I continued to do it, I realized what this route was doing for me. And it was bringing me back to my space where I live and mentally where I'm at in this space, this South Whitehall space. And it was very soothing and very calming. And I'm just wondering how many other individuals in the township, other residents, feel that way about specific routes, or is it the Greenway, or is it whatever? What helps soothe people and helps them identify with their place? And I can tell you mentally that route did so much for me. And I don't know how you incorporate that into what it is you're doing, but I don't think I'm the only person that is happening to. So just wanted to put that out there.
Love it, Marie. You probably can't see everyone in the room, but I think you're getting a lot of nodding heads. I know I'm certainly one of them. I know I'm going to drive my wife crazy if I go my special route. That might be 5-10 minutes longer, but there is something about having that soothing route home, that kind of that homeward feeling, and that it reminds you of that special place. I mean, you moved there for a reason. People live here for a reason, whether they've been here their whole lives or they fell in love with this place. I think that's a really important concept for us to consider in kind of the storytelling. And I'm making some notes here of, how do we look at, the individual, this is my place, this is my space. Certainly don't have an answer for it today, but it's something that I know we can kind of think about for the next couple of weeks here. And I know how important that is to people, and it gets to kind of the heart of this exercise. Like, oftentimes that's the most important thing to the general public. Most people don't understand, the significance of a building here that's 150 years old, or, a view shed, or a specific, stream, feeder stream, or something like that into the Jordan. It's this is where home is. This is what's special. This is my piece. This is, where I feel at home with my family. I love that idea. I think we have another, and Marie, just to orient you. So we're here. It's Chris Stroller.
Yes.
And I'm here with Dave, and Jeff Marshall is our consultant working on this plan. We've added the workbooks that we handed out at the meeting here. All of the workbooks are available on the meeting invitation online, and we will put these onto the website underneath the webpage. Yes, these workbooks. Oh yeah. Sarah said that she'll get you a workbook.
Oh, okay, good. Are they hard copy workbooks? Is that what you have?
They're just printed out.
Okay.
Printed out
All right,
workbooks.
great. That would be great.
Yeah. I think we had another question online from Chris. If you're able to unmute yourself and make your comment.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
So I was wondering how you asked those questions about the Metamoris station and Myersville and stuff like that. How do you want to capture that information? So Metamoris station came back. It used to be a stop on the train that predated the Trojan Powder Company in 1925 when it was started. There used to be homes and barns and farms, and the road used to go all the way up through Trojan Powder and out the back towards Mechanicsville. And that used to be a farming community. And the Metamora station, that's where it came from. That was a stop on the train. So how do you want to capture that information and other information from areas that are people have questions about, shall we say?
So it's a good question. I mean, we have the survey. I like Jacob's suggestion for kind of maybe putting out another survey. And it could be an opportunity for people to share stories and point things out. It's helpful just getting even that bit of information from you that I'm kind of taking notes here. I guess if you have, history of the area just from being in the area, just a conversation would be great. We can, I'm assuming, is this Chris Peichel?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I think it'd be a great conversation if you have, more information on that area that we can, like I mentioned before, we're going to kind of develop maybe some interview questions, and if there's locations on the map. And again, these workbooks, we're hoping that, if anyone wants to just kind of take notes and please draw on these workbooks, draw on the maps and point things out. I know we talked about a couple of, places on there and some of the locations that could use a little bit more information. This is just information gathering for us. So I appreciate the information there, and we'd love to kind of talk more about this. We're going to kind of continue. I know it's getting late here. We're going to continue to move forward. I like the idea of having these continuing on with the word cloud exercise, because this is helpful for us to just take this information. So we're going to move on to area C1. We have a couple more of these, and again, just add in as many as you can. We're going to do a little bit more of a speed round with these last couple. There's also probably less in here just because of the geography. I know a lot of this is built out. And if anyone has any questions, just let us know. Yeah, absolutely. No, this is good. Thank you.
When we first moved to South Whitehall, the covered bridge was there and the dam. And then if you walked to the left along the river, I guess you call that a river? The creek, there were huts or little cabins that fishermen would stay in and fish along there. You keep going. There were a lot of them along there. We used to walk past the cabins. And then at the end, there was a dump that you could dig for bottles, old bottles. If you went,
You know where the boardwalk is on the other side?
On the south side of
The cabins are on the south side of the creek out by where she's talking. It's on the other side from the boardwalk.
yeah, there were a lot of them that they kind of, if somebody was in there, they didn't want you to really walk along there, but we used to walk pretty far and then to the dump.
Interesting.
I mean, there was a building in there too, in the parking lot there.
I don't know, but they were, I thought maybe they rented them, is what I thought, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I can almost guarantee they're not there now, but yeah, I know there's been interest in kind of, exploring areas of the township and doing some walks and things like that. We're gonna look at some of that and get out from this room and hopefully get out and see some of these, whether it's, as a group or individually. But yeah, there's amazing things that we're finding out here. I'm going to give it maybe another 30 seconds here, and then we'll move on to the next one. I want to keep us going, keep us on time here to wrap up by 8 o'clock.
So Chris, can I just make a quick comment? This
Sure.
kind of is an extension of what we're doing while everybody's still doing that. Corridors and having those hometown heroes and
Yeah.
having the images of our grandparents, our great grandparents, all that those historical pictures of those who served. I think that would be a beautiful way to also enrich the history and show what residents served and perhaps have it where they lived or grew up or some special place on our main corridors.
I love it. Yeah. And I know we talked about that during the comprehensive plan. And I think as we get into these other areas, especially like the other focus areas under like C and D, where we might not have as much open space, we might not have as many natural features, but we have communities, residences, places where, there's a lot of visibility. Enter some of that kind of stuff in there, because that's what's special about kind of doing a plan this way, where we wanted to keep it beyond just an open space plan or a natural resource plan or a specific, historic preservation plan where we're looking at just the buildings and the structures. We want to kind of show there is still things that we can do in these built out residential neighborhoods, like, having the hometown heroes along, a corridor along, like we mentioned earlier, having that interpretive signage. There's a lot that we can do in our built out areas of the township. So please put that in there, because those are the ones that we probably won't get as much, just general, what should be preserved here, but what can be interpreted here, what can be shared here. All right, I'm going to switch over to C2.
The woman who spoke on the phone a few minutes ago just made me realize something that is probably another underappreciated concept in planning, which is that the view of the township that most people have is through the windshield of their car. And we don't consider that. We consider that a lot of different other aspects, but the way most people appreciate and most people engage with the township isn't they don't walk on the open spaces, they don't walk on their farms. It's what they see from their car. And back to my point earlier about era corn growing where you can see it, that's the land I want to preserve, not the piece of land behind the hill that nobody can see, because there's so many more benefits. And it's just something that as we look at view sheds and corridors, doing them from the way people will encounter them, which is unfortunately, I guess, through the automobile, because we don't have enough riding trails and walking trails, which is a problem with interpretive signage.
I like that too, because it's not just the resident, it's not just the tourist, it's the passer through. It's someone coming to South Whitehall, whether they intended to come to South Whitehall or they're going through South Whitehall, but it gives them an opportunity to remember South Whitehall, even just for that kind of quick drive through. And that's where, like, the hometown heroes and things like that. I mean, how many times have you driven through a small town in, middle of Pennsylvania or something like that, and you kind of, there's a place that sticks out to you, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember I passed through that community. It was, there's something I appreciated being there for just a short minute of time. And, if we can do anything here to, promote that and preserve that, I think it's great. And I think it's something, everyone can be proud of.
And I think following up that is that a lot of communities have banner programs, and it's a really inexpensive way to commemorate things. But it tells the outsider what the community thinks is important, what they chose to put on their banners. And, I would bet you there are a lot of people who travel through here doesn't know what a Whitehall is, let alone a North Whitehall or a South Whitehall. So having banners that explain what makes it special to the community and therefore to them is something worth thinking about.
Okay, I'm gonna move over to the next area here. This will be D1 down in the southwest corner of the township. So I'll challenge the group again. I'm seeing things Parkway Manor, Dorneyville. Try to get more specific about, what do you mean by that? Preserve Parkway Manor. Well, is it preserve the buildings that are there? Preserve, how the neighborhood was built when it was built. Preserve the character of that community. What do you like about that neighborhood? What do you like about where it is in proximity to everything else? What stands out to you if I think it's telling when someone knows the name of a neighborhood. Oftentimes you might drive through somewhere and it could just look like anywhere USA, but if you can, orient yourself by the name of the neighborhood, there's usually something special about it. If you're trying to say Little Cedar Creek, try little.cedar.creek. It might have, but I'm also seeing Little on its own. I assume it's Little Cedar Creek, and I'll add it here just to emphasize that. Okay, another minute on this one, and then we'll move to the final area, D2. Okay, moving on to the last one. This is the final area, the southernmost area of the township. Okay, we're gonna wrap up the survey here. Get your final answers in there. Josh Early. And we're doing great on time. It worked out pretty well, and I think we're gonna wrap up, and Dave will kind of take us home here, and we'll talk about next steps.
So I want to kind of wrap up. A lot of really good conversation with online and at the tables. So wanted to talk about what's next. So we're really going to take this information on all of these words that were kind of thrown onto those word clouds and look for the commonality and how that stretches across to create these blobs and these areas where there's that commonality. So we know what to start looking for. The other thing, and Chris kind of mentioned the stakeholder meetings. So we have some ideas of, large landowners are a big one. People that know. I mean, there's like your neighbors that have been here for 45, 50 years, talking to them and getting stories. And some of the ideas we were kicking around at one of the tables is having a repository potentially with the library where people can bring in old photos, have them cataloged. The idea of collecting interviews, setting up a format or standardized questions so that we can hopefully get people to tell the stories. Because in addition to the landscape and the structures and the natural resources, there's always the story. The story is also important, if not more important than the structure. So those are things that we're going to try and work out with the stakeholder meetings. And the other piece of this is being that we're running this at staff and with Jeff is we can be fluid. So as ideas come up in meetings like this, we can jump on them and we can implement them. So I'm sure tomorrow is going to be an interesting conversation. A lot of ideas came out of this, so this is great. And in preparation for that, the next round of meetings, we'll be doing some more research and compiling of data. Historic inventory. Jeff kind of mentioned that, we have a dozen on the official map, but that book has hundreds. So I've started going through that book and cataloging things. So we have to kind of go through that data, locate it, and see where I'm sure there's overlaps. So that's some of what we'll be doing. Also with the who, so the next meetings are what and who. We're working with trying to line up subject matter experts to help with natural resources in agriculture. One of the things that we talked about with agriculture, and it kind of came up in some of the comp plan meetings, was the different forms of agriculture. You have large scale farms, but you also have small community farms, and there's different types of farming, and we really kind of want to explore that aspect of agriculture. So we're trying to get somebody in that can kind of talk to that. So that's really what's next. I mean, again, thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you everyone who jumped online. The workbooks are available online. So if you have friends that missed the meeting, direct them to the website. We'll probably put the recording up. So if people want to jot things down on that, we'll put our emails up there and people can email notes, ideas. That's the other thing is, after these meetings, oftentimes on the ride home, I should have said this, or Chris and my email are in the workbook, so shoot us an email. If you have old pictures, take a picture, shoot it to us. Is really, we're trying to gather information and gather that story. So thank you, everyone.